Chomsky once said that the advertising industry's prime task is to ensure that uninformed consumers make irrational choices. Well, I can think of no single industry that adheres to this marketing principle like the ammunition industry does. Over many years, I've seen all the trends in the ammunition industry come and go, only to mysteriously reappear decades later. Leo Burnett once said, "Don't tell me how good you make it, tell me how good it makes me when I use it." This is where the ammunition industry focuses its attention, basically, on convincing you that their bullets will magically turn you into a precision shooter, or will drop game like a death ray and will instantly turn you into a 1,000-yard shooter. So from purely a marketing standpoint, ammunition and firearm companies don't really care about how their bullets actually perform. They mostly care about how their bullets and cartridges make you feel. But, they're smart about advertising to consumers. They do it by throwing out scientific principles and fancy ballistics lingo to convince you that you need their bullets and cartridges in order to be successful. Eventually, when hunters no longer fall for the hype, the industry quickly changes marketing strategies and moves on to the next big thing. In this video, we're going to explore some of these bullet marketing concepts from an ethical hunter's perspective. If you're the type of hunter who actually hunts, meaning you stalk within a few hundred yards and shoot within the maximum point blank range of your cartridge, if you're that type of hunter, you'll find this video very useful and informative. Hopefully, I give hunters a new perspective on things like sectional density, kinetic energy, and ballistic coefficients. And perhaps I'll even shed some light on today's modern whiz-bang cartridges as well. Sectional density is a calculation of the relationship between a bullet's mass and its cross-sectional area. In theory, it tells us how well a bullet will penetrate through an animal. This is one of those concepts that looks great on paper, but doesn't hold much water today because bullet construction has reached a point where pretty much all bonded core and monolithic bullets will go clean through most animals. Back in the day, sectional density was actually a big deal. It was a valid measure of a bullet from a hunting standpoint. Most of those old non-bonded bullets had a tough time penetrating all the way through animals, so heavier bullets were needed to get the desired performance that a hunter wanted at that time. So all the gun magazine articles of the day touted certain bullets as having superior sectional density. In the end, the problem with sectional density is that although it's a scientifically proven way to predict a bullet's ability to penetrate, it doesn't account for the bullet losing mass and changing diameter after impact. So once a bullet hits an animal, all of those little nice sectional density numbers go completely out the window. For instance, if I shot a bullet with the best sectional density number in its caliber, but that bullet is a ballistic tip, it'll pretty much explode on impact with an elk shoulder and probably only penetrate a few inches. But if I shoot a bullet that had the worst sectional density for the caliber, but that bullet just happened to be a TSX, I might get 20 inches of penetration. In this example, the bullet with the worst sectional density numbers penetrates, 17 inches deeper than the bullet with the best sectional density. So it didn't take long for people to realize that bullet construction is much more important than sectional density when it comes to penetration. As you can see from this example in ballistics gel, The 110 grain TSX can get the same adequate penetration as the 150 grain Corlock. Without getting into a long-winded discussion about physics, I'll end this conversation by telling you that the only thing SD numbers tell us is that bullets of the exact same caliber and the exact same construction, if you compare these two, the heavier bullets will penetrate deeper. So in the end, that's all you need to know about sectional density. But with more modern bullets that reliably penetrate all the way through animals, with lighter weight bullets, hunters can ignore sectional density to some degree and choose to have a lower recoil, flatter shooting bullet that still provides adequate penetration. So when bullet construction got to the point where most hunting bullets can easily penetrate animals and hunters kind of started ignoring sectional density to some extent, marketing strategies went full circle back to kinetic energy as the ultimate measure of a cartridge's effectiveness on game animals. Basically people really looked hard at kinetic energy back in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, and it went full circle back to that. To simplify things, the kinetic energy of a bullet is a calculation of the bullet's mass and its velocity. In theory, the higher the foot-pounds of energy delivered to an animal, the more damage that you'll do to that animal. Kinetic energy is sometimes referred to by hunters as stopping power. The odd consequence of kinetic energy is that it spawned the age of ultra-high velocity magnums, and the gun industry went into overtime convincing everybody that their lowly 30-06 and 308 were now inadequate for reliably killing animals, and that they needed to have a 300 Ultra Mag. You see, if you raise the muzzle velocity of any given cartridge, you also raise the foot-pounds of energy, and it's easy to tell customers that your new, faster cartridges have a lot more stopping power. But it was soon noticed that the problem with kinetic energy was where the energy was dumped after shooting real animals. In many instances, those ultra-fast magnums were blowing up bullets too early on those closer shots. Many people refer to this as energy dump. What people don't realize is that the duration or rate of energy transfer is much more important than the total amount of energy transferred to the animal. And to make matters worse, those ultra-fast bullets, if they did perform perfectly, you usually got massive meat damage, which completely defeats the purpose of hunting in the first place. So people begin to question if too much velocity is a bad thing for thin-skinned game. Ultra-high velocity cartridges went full circle again in the early 2000s when the Ultra Mags were developed and heavily marketed to consumers. They were really hyped by gun writers and ammo companies at the time, but they quickly became a passing fad like just about everything. In the end, hunters once again started bucking the industry hype when they realized that at 200 yards, their 308 killed deer just as fast as a 300 Ultra Mag did, and did it with half the recoil, less meat damage, and with much cheaper ammunition. Where energy really comes into play is for stopping dangerous game animals instantly. And for this, most experts love mass over velocity to achieve the desired energy levels, because the added benefit of mass is penetration. Let me give you a good analogy. The car guys out there know that horsepower is a simple calculation involving torque multiplied by RPMs. So there's two approaches to getting horsepower. You have the big block guys that get their horsepower through massive torque, and the small block guys who get their horsepower by spinning higher RPMs. And kinetic energy is like that in the hunting world because it can be achieved through either mass or velocity. So You have the elephant hunter out there with his 500 Nitro Express using mass to get his energy. And conversely, you have the pronghorn hunter out there with his 257 Weatherby using velocity to get his energy. Mass gives you penetration, and velocity gives you a flat shooting cartridge. But together, they both give you kinetic energy. Ballistic coefficient is a calculation of mass, drag, and cross-sectional area. Basically, it's a measure of how well a bullet fights air resistance in flight. A high BC bullet goes faster for longer distances and resists the effects of wind better. Hornady made ballistic coefficient a household word back in 2007 when they introduced the 6.5 Creedmoor cartridge. Before that, really only long-distance target shooters cared about BCs. Hunters didn't really care about BCs. Hornady made an absolute fortune on the whole high BC bullet marketing strategy. And it really didn't take long for other ammo manufacturers to convince unsuspecting hunters that they too needed high BC bullets. And in my opinion, this high BC bullet hype hit its pinnacle with the ELDX. This thing is just selling like hotcakes right now to people, and it's just being marketed like crazy. If you look at that, I don't know if you can read that right there, it actually says the first item explaining this is that it has match accurate, all around hunting bullet with the highest Doppler radar verified BCs. So, they don't say, hey, this thing kills good. Our hunting bullet kills good. They're just saying this thing has the best BCs, a special tip that doesn't deform or melt. That's basically the way they market this, BCs over terminal effects. And it's a shame because, in my opinion, this is probably the worst hunting bullet out right now. I've probably seen more failures in the last year and a half with this bullet than any other bullet. So it pretty much got to the point where people were hunting with rebranded target bullets like the VLDs and the ELDs and shooting at distances where deer can't even see you or hear you. You shoot at a deer 700-800 yards, it doesn't even know it's being shot at. In my opinion, this is where American hunters really hit an ethical low point. In the last few years, people really begin to ask themselves if BCs really matter for hunting. Well, in my opinion, they don't. For your typical ethical 200-yard shot with a high-powered rifle, BCs really mean absolutely nothing. Never choose a hunting bullet based on BCs. Choose a bullet based off of reliable terminal performance, because that's all that matters at these distances. Real-world experience will tell you that at ethical hunting distances, a 25-06 will shoot flatter and put animals down quicker than a 243 will, even though the 243 has way better BC bullets. So it's best for hunters to just completely ignore ballistic coefficient hype and choose hunting bullets based on how they kill game. The new hype in the firearms world is the introduction of modern high-performance cartridges. These are cartridges that combine heavy for caliber high BC bullets with cases that can reach ultra-high velocities. The new Nosler cartridges and Hornady's new PRC cartridges are prime examples of this. The marketing hype with these is that you get superior sectional density, kinetic energy, high ballistic coefficients, and a flat trajectory all in one convenient package. They tried to throw every marketing trick
that's been used over the last 70 years into one cartridge and created something that looks amazing on paper. It all seems perfect until you realize a couple things. First of all, they're simply reinventing the ballistics of cartridges that already existed. So, like I said earlier, nothing is new in the cartridge industry. It just comes full circle and gets marketed, differently by somebody else.
Next, these new modern high-performance cartridges have the same faults that the Ultramags did in the past. At ethical hunting distances, they offer much more recoil, more meat damage, more barrel wear, are way more expensive to shoot than a standard hunting cartridge, and they don't kill any better than a standard hunting cartridge within 300 yards. So eventually, hunters will realize the faults of the modern high-performance cartridges, and things will go full circle once again. There's a reason why cartridges like the 270, 308, 30-06, and 375 H&H will still be popular 100 years from now, and it has nothing to do with marketing. Throughout the history of the modern centerfire rifle, experts have tried religiously to quantify the effectiveness of different bullets on live targets.
Taylor had his knockout formula. Chamberlain had his hydrostatic shock theory. Fackler had his stopping power mechanism. Wooters had his lethality index. And Winchester had its CXP designation. And ammo manufacturers have bombarded hunters with ballistic buzzwords for the last 20 years.
The point is, people have been trying to quantify how a cartridge or bullet reacts to flesh and bone since the bullet was invented. What we have as a result is basically highly subjective data that's hotly disputed within the hunting community. Now, we have complex mathematical equations that don't pan out in the real world, and biased studies that seem to confirm personal agendas towards particular cartridges or bullets. We have people with multiple PhDs out there disagreeing with each other, and real hunters with boots on the ground saying something completely different. So, how do you make sense of it all? Well, first of all, you don't. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has all the answers here. A mathematical equation is not the same as taking a full frontal shot on a charging Cape buffalo. That awesome wound channel that you see in 10% ballistics gel is not the same as sending a bullet through both shoulders on an elk. Most of these bullet metrics also don't take bullet construction into account. Bullet construction is far more important than sectional density or ballistic coefficients. But these power indexes that we discuss in this chapter can be somewhat useful. If anything, they confirm Robert Work's wise words when he said, "Use enough gun." The worst thing we could do as hunters is to concentrate on these made-up power indexes as some type of canonized hunting gospel. We have to take them all with a grain of salt. Before you go down into the comment section under this video and try to school me on why SDs, BCs, and foot-pounds are so important, please hear me out. This video is for hunters, more specifically for ethical hunters who actually stalk or ambush animals in a fair chase manner within distances where the animal has a fighting chance. Even the most die-hard MIT educated ballistician will concede that ballistic coefficients don't matter at these distances, especially while shooting from field positions with a high-powered rifle. Secondly, ethical hunters use real hunting bullets designed for killing animals by holding their mass through tissue and bone, expanding reliably to create a devastating wound channel and to penetrate all the way through the animal for a good blood trail. And all of this while not destroying all that precious meat. Many of these bullets do this in lighter weights. So the hunter can kill animals with bullets that recoil less and shoot flatter at ethical hunting distances. The reality is that both a 165 grain Barnes and a 200 grain Barnes bullet will both go all the way through a mule deer at 250 or 300 yards. But the 165 grain bullet will shoot flatter, and have significantly less recoil. So in this case, sectional density is a moot point, and the lighter bullets have more advantages. If you take anything away from the concept of sectional density, let it be the fact that velocity does not equate to better penetration. So what are the new Nosler and PRC cartridges really gaining for the hunter that's shooting animals under 300 yards? In reality, they're really gaining nothing in penetration or bullet performance while introducing more recoil, less barrel life, and increased ammunition expenses. At the end of the day, shot placement and bullet construction are far more important than ballistic values. If you don't use a good hunting bullet and put it in the right place, nothing else really matters. Now, what I don't want you to take away from this video is that it's okay to hunt big game with marginal cartridges or horribly light bullets, because I'm not advocating that at all. What I am advocating is using a cartridge and bullet that reliably and ethically gets the job done. Picking the right cartridge and bullet is a balancing act. You want to maximize the energy needed to quickly kill the target, while at the same time making the experience as comfortable and manageable as possible with doing the least amount of meat damage. Well, I hope you found my commentary on bullet hype to be both enjoyable and informative. Like everything related to this video, it's an opinion. More specifically, my opinion. Hit subscribe if you like this video, and if you have any questions or comments, you can reach me at desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com. That's desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com, and I'll try to give you a response or maybe answer your question in the January Hunt Camp mail. As always, thanks for watching and good hunting.